That date is circled in red on the calendar of every single person who grew up watching Marvel movies. Because on that day, Avengers Doomsday hits theaters. And I am not exaggerating when I say this might be the most consequential superhero film since Avengers Endgame. Actually, scratch that, this is a sequel to Endgame. The Russo Brothers said so themselves. And here's the thing that gets me. The MCU has had a rough few years. Phase 4 and 5 had highs, sure, but also some real lows. Audience trust has been bruised. Casual fans checked out. But then the CinemaCon trailer dropped in April 2026, and people in that room said they had never experienced a reaction like that at the convention. Robert Downey Jr. walked on stage, the crowd lost it, and the trailer played twice because the audience demanded. That is the kind of energy we have not felt since 2019. So today I am breaking down everything you need to watch before Doomsday, not just a list, a strategy, because this movie connects threads going back years, and if you go in cold, you are going to miss things that will hit 10 times harder if you have the right context. Let us get into it. That is the kind of energy we have not felt since 2019. So today I am breaking down everything you need to watch before Doomsday, not just a list, a strategy, because this movie connects threads going back years, and if you go in cold, you are going to miss things that will hit 10 times harder if you have the right context. Let us get into it. Before we build the watch list, let us talk about what makes Doomsday unlike anything the MCU has done in the last 5 years. First, the scale is genuinely absurd. We are talking about MCU heroes, the original Fox X-Men, the Fantastic Four, the Thunderbolts team, Wakandans, Talokanal, and then Robert Downey Jr. as the villain. That is not a cast. That is a small country. Second, the villain is Doctor Doom. And I need you to understand something about Doctor Doom because the MCU version might actually be smarter than Thanos. Joe Russo described Doom as someone who is, quote, never simply a villain but one of the most complex Marvel characters, always 3 moves ahead. In the comics, Doom does not punch his way to winning. He outthinks everyone. If the MCU gives us that version of Doom, we are in for something genuinely new. Third, the circumstances around this film are wild in the best way. This movie was originally going to star Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror as the central threat. That fell apart completely. Marvel pivoted, brought back the Russo Brothers, hired Stephen McFeely, one of the original Endgame writers, and convinced Robert Downey Jr. to return not as Iron Man but as the villain. That is one of the boldest creative pivots in blockbuster history, and it worked. Early box office tracking in early 2026 already had Doomsday projected as the highest grossing film of the year. So what do you need to watch to fully appreciate what is coming? Let us break it down tier by tier. Avengers: Infinity War and Avengers: Endgame. I know you have seen them. Watch them again anyway. Here is why. The Russo brothers have been very specific that Doomsday is a direct sequel to Endgame. Kevin Feige stood on the CinemaCon stage and said word for word that Doomsday picks up where Endgame left off. That means the emotional stakes, the character arcs, the unresolved threads from 2019, they are all back in play. Steve Rogers lived an entire life in the past and came back old. Now he is young again in Doomsday, and the first teaser showed him picking up Mjolnir. There is clearly a story there about what happened to Steve after the events of Endgame, and it connects directly to the ending of that film. If you do not remember that ending clearly, you're going to feel the emotional weight of those scenes land at about half capacity. There's also the Thor thread. At the end of Endgame, Thor leaves with the Guardians of the Galaxy. His arc in Doomsday involves fatherhood, specifically his adopted daughter Love, who is introduced in Thor: Love and Thunder. The IMDb page even has a piece of Thor's dialogue that references fighting one more battle to return home to her, not as a warrior but as something softer. That is a man who has grown. Context matters enormously there. And then there is the Endgame re-release. Marvel is bringing Endgame back to theaters with brand new scenes that are being described as a critical companion story setting up Doomsday. That is not a marketing gimmick. Those scenes are going to matter. If you can catch that in theaters before December, do it. Thunderbolts and the Fantastic Four, First Steps, both from 2025, are probably the most important recent entries for understanding Doomsday. Thunderbolts introduces the team that becomes the new Avengers. That includes Yelena Belova, Bucky Barnes, Red Guardian, Ghost, US Agent, and Sentry. Every single one of those characters is confirmed in Doomsday. The CinemaCon trailer showed the new Avengers meeting the Fantastic Four and Mystique impersonating Yelena, which leads to a Florence Pugh versus Florence Pugh standoff that sounds absolutely unhinged in the best possible way. You need to know who these people are and why they operate together. Fantastic Four, First Steps does something Marvel has been trying to do for decades, which is finally bring the first family into the MCU in a way that feels earned. Pedro Pascal plays Mr. Fantastic, Vanessa Kirby is the Invisible Woman, Joseph Quinn is the Human Torch, and Ebon Moss-Bachrach plays the Thing. Their post-credits scene is a direct bridge into Doomsday territory. Their arrival into the main MCU timeline is not a cameo. They're core players in the conflict with Doom. And here is what makes the Fantastic Four so important specifically for Doom. In the comics, Victor Von Doom and Reed Richards have one of the most personal rivalries in all of fiction. Reed Richards is the man Doom believes stole his destiny. If the film leans into that dynamic even slightly, having seen the Fantastic Four movie first is going to make every scene between them land differently. There's also a note worth making about the Marvels. You can largely skip the main story, but the post-credits scene introduces a multiverse crossover with the X-Men that does add a piece to the puzzle. It is a quick watch if you want the completionist experience. Now here is the one television entry that I genuinely believe is required viewing before Doomsday. Loki both seasons. I know a lot of people treat Marvel TV as optional homework. With Loki, you cannot afford to treat it that way. Here is why. Loki Season 1 introduced the concept of the sacred timeline, the TVA, variants, and most importantly, Kang the Conqueror, through the character of He Who Remains, played by Jonathan Majors. Even though Majors is gone from the MCU, the mythology he built in that season is still the foundation of the multiverse structure the entire saga rests on. Then Season 2 takes everything further. Loki himself becomes the guardian of the multiverse, a character who now literally holds the branches of time together. Tom Hiddleston is confirmed to return in Doomsday, and think about the setup. Loki is the protector of the multiverse. Dr. Doom is described in the CinemaCon trailer as a man who intends to invade the multiverse. That is a direct collision course. The man holding the threads of reality together versus a man who wants to rewrite those threads entirely. On top of all of this, Loki Season 2 is simply excellent television. It is the kind of show that gets better every episode, ends on a note that genuinely moved a lot of people, and represents the MCU at its creative peak in the streaming era. Even if you only watch it for the mythology, you will end up watching it for the story. Shang Kai and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Simu Liu is confirmed in Doomsday, and the CinemaCon footage already showed him going toe-to-toe with Gambit from the X-Men. His weapon, the Ten Rings, are ancient magical artifacts tied to alien origins that the MCU has never fully explained. There is a real chance Doomsday explores that history further. Shang Kai is also just a great movie. If you have not seen it, watch it. If you have, a rewatch is quick and enjoyable. Thor: Love and Thunder. I will be honest with you. This film is messy. It is unfocused in ways that are frustrating because the emotional core of it is actually really good. The introduction of love the child Thor adopts at the end is what matters most here. Thor's arc in Doomsday appears to be built around that relationship. The dialogue already teasing in Doomsday's promotional material is clearly a man who now has something to lose beyond himself. Captain America: Brave New World. Sam Wilson has officially taken the shield. Anthony Mackie is confirmed in Doomsday as the MCU's Captain America going forward. This film introduces the concept of a new Avengers team forming and covers key political ground about what it means to be Captain America in a changed world. It is not perfect, but it sets up Sam's role in the larger ensemble clearly. And while we are here, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is worth mentioning. The CinemaCon footage showed a confrontation between Wakanda and the Talokans. Shuri is confirmed as Black Panther in Doomsday, and Namor, played by Tenoch Huerta, is also in the film. Their conflict from Wakanda Forever is clearly unresolved going into this. Okay, let us talk about the thing that might actually be the most exciting part of this entire movie. The Fox X-Men are in Doomsday. Patrick Stewart as Professor X, Ian McKellen as Magneto, Channing Tatum finally playing Gambit after that role was in development for nearly a decade, Rebecca Romijn as Mystique, Kelsey Grammer as Beast, James Marsden is also confirmed. These are not reboots. These appear to be the same characters from the 20th Century Fox franchise, crossing over into the MCU through multiverse mechanics. The idea of colliding universes is how the Russo Brothers are justifying bringing together characters from completely different franchises under one roof. Now here is where it gets genuinely nerdy and interesting. In the comics, there is a storyline called The Incursion, where universes physically collide and destroy each other. The MCU has been seeding this idea since Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. If Doom is not just attacking the MCU but is causing or weaponizing these incursions, then the scale of the threat is not just Earth level, it is reality level. That would make him more dangerous than Thanos ever was, because Thanos only wanted to delete half of one universe. Doom might be threatening the existence of multiple realities simultaneously. That context, that scope, is what makes Doomsday feel genuinely different on paper. Here is the thing that nobody talks about enough when they discuss the Doomsday hype. The MCU has been trying to recapture the Endgame energy for 5 years. Every Phase 4 announcement was sold as the next big thing. Every multiverse movie was supposed to build towards something, and a lot of those pieces did not land with audiences the way Marvel hoped. But Doomsday is structurally different from those attempts, because the Russo brothers are not being handed a phase they need to synthesize. They are being handed the entire sandbox, every character, every franchise, every lingering thread, and they get to decide how they all collide. That is exactly what made Infinity War and Endgame work. The Russos are architects. They build things that click together precisely when it counts. The CinemaCon audience response was not just excitement about nostalgia. People were reacting to footage that felt like it had stakes again. Real ones, Doom narrating over the trailer in a voice that is both familiar and completely foreign. Steve Rogers picking up a hammer, Loki standing somewhere in the wreckage of a timeline. These are not just cool images. They are the payoff to years of setup. And if Doomsday lands the way that trailer promises, then Secret Wars in December 2027 becomes the most anticipated film ever made. Because the Russos confirmed those two films are connected the same way Infinity War and Endgame were. Doomsday is the setup. Secret Wars is the conclusion. So here is your actual watch list, clean and simple. Watch first, no exceptions, Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. Catch the re-release in theaters if you can. Watch second, they connect directly, Thunderbolts, the Fantastic Four first steps, and both seasons of Loki. Watch third for full context, Shang-Chi, Thor Love and Thunder, Captain America Brave New World, and Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And then on December 18, 2026, you walk into that theater knowing exactly why every character in that room matters. What they have lost, what they are fighting for, and why Dr. Doom, wearing Robert Downey Jr.'s face behind that iron mask, is the most personal villain the MCU has ever put on screen. This is the one. I genuinely believe that. The MCU is not done. It was just waiting for the right moment to remind everyone why we fell in love with these stories in the first place. If you found this useful, subscribe and leave a comment telling me which entry on this watch list you are most looking forward to revisiting. I will see you in the next one.